Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on something, well, pretty heavy. Nuclear weapons. And all the anxieties that, come with them. It's the kind of thing that you don't want to think about too much, right? But we got to look at this stuff. Cities disappearing in a flash. No more power grids, going back to, the Stone Age. It's scary stuff. So why are we still so worried about this in 2024? I mean, it's not like we've seen a nuclear attack since World War II. Well, the world's a different place than it was back then, right? During the Cold War, it was basically just the US and Russia facing off. Yeah, like two big bullies in the schoolyard. But now things are more complicated. Experts call it a multipolar world. More countries have power now, not just military, but economic power too. And a lot of those countries have nukes, which, makes things pretty unpredictable to say the least, like North Korea, for example. Their nuclear program's a huge red flag. Remember their test back in 2024? Experts thought it was as strong as 120 kilotons. The bomb that hit Hiroshima was only 15. That's a big difference. And part of that is because the tech's gotten better. They can pack more power into smaller bombs now. It's a pretty scary thought. And it's not just countries either. There's also the risk of, terrorists getting their hands on this stuff. Or some rogue state. I mean, can you imagine a group like that with a nuke? It doesn't even bear thinking about. And then there's nuclear power itself, right? We found this amazing energy source, but it's also the key to our own destruction. It's a total double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's clean energy, and we really need that with climate change and all. But it could also be used to make weapons. So what do we do? Are the benefits worth the risks? And how we keep it from, being used for the wrong reasons? These are questions everyone needs to be thinking about, not just the folks in charge. Now let's talk about, the psychological side of all this. Living with the threat of nuclear war hanging over us. Because it's not just something you see on the news, right? It gets inside your head, shapes how you see the world. I remember those drills back in the Cold War. Duck and cover, they called it. Hiding under your desk would actually do anything. It made you feel, kind of helpless, like your life could end at any moment. With everything going on in the world today, I think a lot of people are feeling the same dread again. And it makes you think about places like North Korea, one of the most isolated places on Earth. There was this story about a guy in Canada who actually picked up North Korean TV broadcasts just using a satellite dish. Yeah. Can you imagine living in a place like that where everything's controlled and Kim Jong-un's this all-powerful figure? It's a reminder of how powerful information is and how far some regimes will go to control it. And that brings us to Kim Jong-un and, the moral questions surrounding these weapons. The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that's still a huge debate, right? Did the U.S. really have to do it? Or was it more about sending a message to Russia? Some historians think so. It's a tough question. We have to face the horror of what happened, but also ask ourselves, was it justified? Could we have avoided the nuclear arms race that came after? It's not easy to think about, but we have to. And when it comes to North Korea, they definitely use propaganda and fear to control people. We've heard stories from people who escaped about how they have to act super excited whenever Kim Jong-un's around. And if you speak out against the regime or even have a relative who does, the punishments are awful. It creates this atmosphere of fear. You're always being watched. It's a reminder that, dictators have always used fear to stay in power. North Korea might be an extreme example, but it shows us how important it is to protect democracy, and to speak out when it's under threat. And the thing is, North Korea's role in the world is super complicated. Their relationships with China and the US are always changing, which adds another layer of uncertainty to the whole nuclear situation. And then there's this really disturbing fact. There's evidence that North Korea is using slave labor in Chinese factories. And some of these factories are making stuff for American companies. It's pretty messed up, right? We could be supporting this whole system without even realizing it. It shows how connected everything is and how much responsibility we have as consumers. We got to be aware of where our stuff comes from and what impact our choices have. It really makes you think, doesn't it? That's a lot to take in. It can make you feel kind of powerless, But we can't just give up. What if instead of feeling scared, we actually did something about it? What if we spoke up, demanded change from our leaders? I mean, I know it sounds kind of idealistic, right? Getting rid of nuclear weapons altogether. But I think it's possible if we work at it. It all starts with, understanding the problem, learning about how these weapons came to be, what the situation's like today. Conversations like this help, and each of us taking responsibility for what we do, the choices we make. Imagine you had the chance to talk to a world leader, any world leader, about nuclear disarmament. What would you say to them? It's a big question, I know. But really think about what kind of world do we want to live in? What do we want to leave for our kids? And once you've got that vision in your head, how do we get there? It doesn't have to be some huge thing. Just talking to your friends and family about this stuff, that's the start.